We're going to have a quick look at the merge API for Mixpanel. What is the merge API? The merge API basically is used in the context of Mixpanel when you have two Mixpanel profiles with potentially two identity clusters or distinct ID clusters, right? And what we're actually indicating through the merge API to Mixpanel is, look, actually you have a profile of user A, you have a profile of user B, but these two profiles are actually the same person. So therefore you can actually merge them entirely. We're going to kind of look like at a different way of using the merge API because we're going to use it in order to already inject a different distinct ID before it is actually created and possibly like isolate it as a separate profile. But that's in the use case of a very specific edge case, I would say, which is relevant and why I'm sending you this video, right? So to start with, I'm going to open up my Mixpanel account. We're using TrackLab. Don't pay too much attention. It's what we use to train our team and to make educational videos, right? What we're doing is I'm going to do a Mixpanel reset because I want a new and clean user. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to do a Mixpanel.track call where I say this is a pre-merge event. Doesn't really matter, right? Yep, I'm gonna send that in. Then I'm gonna do a mixpanel.identify using a pre-merge ID video. Let's call it like this. And I'm actually gonna send this in. And what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna do a mixpanel people.set. I'm on a different keyboard again, so I need to, whoops, cheat a tiny bit. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say status. Just so I set a custom profile property so we can see that it happened before the merge, right? Because we're actually creating a profile at that moment, and pre-merge value doesn't really matter actually, but we might not need it here. Oops. What went wrong? What went wrong? Yep, we're good. So all of this is now being sent to Mixpanel, and we're gonna have a quick look at what this looks like. Obviously, I've been running a couple of tests today already, but here you see we have a pre-merge event. We have a anonymous ID, we have the ID that we've set ourselves, we have the event that came in, we have the identify, and here we have the status field if all goes well, pre-merge value. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna try to inject a post-merge ID video, right? ID into this cluster, and we're gonna use the merge command in order to do so. Why are we doing that? Because actually we can hint Mixpanel or we can alternate the cluster of this user before actually sending in under that new distinct ID. Because if we would do that, it would first create a completely separate profile, and then we would need to execute the merge command to merge two accounts. Actually, this is a different way of doing it, but the execution is actually fairly the same, and it might be a bit lighter because at that point, Mixpanel doesn't have to merge two actual accounts, right? And at the state or at the moment of recording, actually event merge in the merge API is supported, but profile property merge or profile properties are not yet supported. So that could generate problems because Mixpanel merges, but it uses kind of a lazy algorithm, meaning that it's just gonna merge in a way that they choose a canonical ID, meaning the primary distinct ID, right? But also the profile properties. So you don't really know what you're gonna keep and what you're gonna lose. So that's why we're doing it this way. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna use this tiny setup. So this is basically the merge API help page from Mixpanel. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna input all of the data I need in order to get this going. Obviously, you would build this out as a microservice or something, but this is just for the sake of making this video and showing the functionalities, right? So here you see that we have two strings that we need to put in. First string is going to be the string that we have as a distinct ID here. Poof, I'm going to put it in. And now what I'm going to say is, look, actually, all my events that are going to happen later, I'm going to change my distinct ID. Imagine in the case that you have a distinct ID that comes from a marketing CRM, but you're a SaaS company. So for marketing purposes, you use your HubSpot CRM ID or something else. But then later on, the user signs up, an instance of your product is being spun up, and as soon as the user logs in, all of these actions will actually be logged under another distinct ID, right? real world scenario, and this is exactly what we're testing here. So imagine this is a pre-merge ID and this is a post-merge ID. Next, what I need to set up is my username and my password, and I do that by creating a service account. And I'm creating a service account here, add service accounts, merge video. Gonna make myself admin, and I'm gonna specify that it expires in 2 days. Anyways, I'm gonna delete it after this video because these are credentials, right? I'm gonna copy all of this in. So this is my username, and oops, this is my password. And so basically what this help page does, it builds this post request for me, right? If I now hit send, what we're expecting is actually that this identity cluster, and I'm actually going to duplicate it here. So we have an older copy and the other one I can refresh, right? But this now has two IDs. It has an anonymous ID and it has a distinct ID that was the pre-merge ID video. What I'm expecting to happen a couple of seconds or minutes after I execute that command is that basically on top of these two identities, we'll have a third identity called post-merge ID video. So let's hit send. We should get a 200 back. Okay, that's awesome. And now we'll probably have to wait a couple of seconds, potentially even minutes before everything here comes through. What's interesting is that you here immediately see the merge, right? You see here the pre-merge ID video and the post-merge ID video. And actually it's already here. Look, post-merge ID video. And now what we're gonna do as a test, we're actually gonna do a mixpanel.reset. I'm gonna call, I'm actually gonna do like this. That way I'm sure I have everything. Post-merge video event, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call mixpanel.identify, sorry, poof, and I'm gonna paste in this new ID. And we're actually gonna go to the events tab to get to see if we have a new overview. Pre-merge video, if I click into this, we see that the post-merge event and the identify with a post-merge ID video actually is in the event stream of the account, and that we now have a fourth ID, which is the anonymous ID because I just did a reset. So everything works perfectly.